Hello and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. Actually, it's a pretty special episode because it is our first episode from in lockdown, but it's also our 100th episode. So, so yeah, happy 100 episodes, mate.
Happy 100 episodes, David.
Yeah, well, I'm Dave G, and joining me, of course, is my co-host Kyle, who you've already heard from.
Hello, everybody.
But yeah, tonight we're doing a very, very special edition of the Popcorn Conspiracy because, as we know, cinemas are all closed at the moment, and so everything that we're watching is kind of online. Monster Pictures have got these very, very special Friday night frights going online. Of course, for anyone who's a big fan of Monster Pictures, you'll know a couple of years ago they were doing this at like Lido cinemas and places like that, where they were doing Friday Night Frights, where they show really obscure kind of horror movies that have either been lost for years and years or have never ever seen the light of day. The movie that they're showing this Friday night is actually an Australian film called Sheborg Massacre. If you're in the US, you can get this movie on Blu-ray and DVD, but it's called Sheborg. I don't know why they changed it, but it is called Sheborg in the States. Now, this is basically a micro-budget Aussie film from director Daniel Armstrong, who's been doing great things in the Australian film industry over the past few years. And this was one of his earlier films that was made on an absolute micro-budget, but just goes to show how you can make cult cinema still look pretty good on a really, really low budget. The film itself tells the story of Dylan, played by Whitney Duff, who's a little bit of a rebel. She's a little bit of an anarchist, and her best friend Eddie, played by Daisy Masterman, is quite often dragged along into her exploits and finds herself in trouble as well. But not even they know what to do when an alien race of Sheborgs kind of land on Earth and start converting people to become Sheborgs, even though some are male, so I don't know if they're still called Sheborgs. But it is up to Dylan and Eddie to try and stop these Sheborgs from taking over the world. Now, mate, I know it's pretty hard to judge a micro-budget movie, because normally when we talk about a film, we talk about the special effects and stuff like this, but this movie probably was made on what would be less than the catering budget for one day on a Hollywood blockbuster. So tell us your thoughts on Sheborg Massacre.
Yeah, man, like, I like these kind of movies. They're like, just you can really, I might have a lot of problems with like, oh, that looks so fake and that, but the type of movie it is, as you say, it's so micro budget that you've got to forgive it for these things, because like they didn't have much of a choice, you know? As I say, I appreciated that it was such a low budget, just kind of like this gory, fun action flick with about these two chicks taking on these mutant zombie kind of things. I call them zombies, but I like the way in the movie that when the people get turned into these cyborg things, they still almost talk just like normal people.
Yeah.
There's nothing like they don't become like mindless zombie drones or anything. They kind of just continue talking like normal people, except okay, now we want to kill you and eat your guts and eat these pets and stuff like that. So I like kind of the cheesy moments of the movie. There are some very ultra low budget, but there was a lot of special effects in the movie that, of course, looked very hokey. But I was kind of surprised that there were some parts in the movie that I thought actually looked really good. Some of the CGI effects looked pretty good, and I really did like the gore effects throughout the movie as well. Sometimes there's some of these like action sequences that are just like fighting moments, and they know that they're bad, but they go on just a little bit too long. I guess, like, story-wise, it wasn't that impressive, but it was just a fun, kind of just this really fun, low-budget movie. I guess I love the gore stuff, but we'll get into that. What did you think of it, Dave?
Yeah, look, I've been a big fan of Daniel Armstrong's for a long time. Like, his movies that were even earlier than Sheborg, stuff like Fight Like a Girl, Murderdrome, they were just those great kind of fun horror action movies that you watch. And I think like Daniel kind of gives like a little bit of a nod to like 80s kind of cult cinema as well. Like, so I think he deliberately keeps some of the stuff like the fight sequences not looking as great as what they could as a kind of nod to that period. Because the surprising thing was, after Sheborg, about 12 months later, he made the movie that I think is the best of his career to date, Tarnation, which was this great horror movie where everything looked a hell of a lot better. Like, and of course, he matured as a filmmaker as well. Like, Daniel's still pretty young, and he started making short films like I think like 11 years ago now. So he's still quite a young filmmaker, and but yeah, I always have time for these kinds of movies, and I think it's because like I have loved films like Houseboat of Horrors for so many years that like there's just something about these kind of Aussie cheesy cult movies that just really work. Like, and it's really funny because if I'm like, when we talked about Gemini Man, like we crapped all over that film and was like saying about how bad the special effects and that look, and like, but I think like that comes back to what they should look like. Like I said, Ang Lee would have had hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on those special effects, and to be honest, some of his special effects don't look as good as the ones in Sheborg. Like, you've got to judge a movie, A, on what it's trying to do, and B, what it's working with, because, this movie was pretty much shot on the one farm. The actors and the actresses, you're not working with Tom Cruise and people like that, so for a lot of these it would have been their first feature film, so the fact that they were doing stunts and things like that is actually quite unique, that these young actors and actresses were doing it, and kind of doing it as well as what they were. I think for me, one of the real shining lights from this movie was actually the two leads. Like, I actually thought that they both did a really, really good job with this film. And, like, considering that, like, how long ago this movie was made, I'm actually a little bit surprised that, especially Whitney Duff hasn't gone on to bigger and better things, because I actually thought that she carried this movie a lot, like she has to, because she's the star. But I also thought that, like, her sidekick was quite good too. Daisy was really good in that part, and, like, I think that helps you kind of overcome some of the things that might make you groan about a movie like this, is if the acting is actually okay. There's some good humor in this as well. Like, this film doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, a guy gets anally probed by an alien and stuff like that. Like, it's kind of like, and I think I said it to you yesterday, it's a little bit like Australians, the sci-fi movie that came out a few years ago, where the thing that we kind of liked about it was uniquely Australian, but it also didn't take itself too seriously, and that's also the case with this film as well. And I think that's what I liked about it, was that these kind of movies are great to sit back and just watch on a Friday night and have a little bit of a laugh at, but be entertained at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't like the performances quite as much. I thought they were very kind of cheesy, but I mean, there's also kind of the two lead characters. Kind of, there's a bit of camaraderie between them. But I think very early on, I guess Dylan. I guess it's intentional. The way that Dylan's acting and the way that Whitney Duff is portraying the character, it's intentional. That she is kind of like this, like really trying to act out this anarchist who's really a try-hard too much. It really is kind of an intentional thing of the character, but I guess it's bad to say, but very early on in the movie, there's a confrontation between Dylan and her father, who's the mayor, when he gets her out of jail, and then he backhands her because the way she's talking to him, and just her general behavior. And I don't know, at that point I was like, yeah, good, fine, smack her, because it felt like she had it coming. But I don't know, it was, I think as the movie went on, of course, the character goes through a bit of more growth. Some of those scenes felt a bit forced, whatever, but it really is what you have to work with. I think, as you said, doing their own stunts. There's a part in the movie where Whitney Duff is hanging off of the back of a van as like speeding around this farm, and that part, I have to admit, like, gee, you got the actual actress. I mean, it's probably the type of movie that they couldn't afford to get a stunt person to do it, but it's like you got to say the actress is she's game to be doing that. She's climbing along the side of this van like as it's speeding around through this farm. So, I mean, that was quite an admirable thing, and that's kind of something that you like from these like exploitation movies, like that. They're cool with doing things like that. I just said, I guess it's a pity that that some of the actors haven't gone on to do other things, but I am interested to see some of Daniel Armstrong's other movies, like that Tarnation one. After watching this, I do think that, like, some of the movie, there's parts of the movie where it doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's good. I think the style that the movie really should have gone for was that comedic slapstick tone with like splatter gore comedy. There are some parts that are a little, I don't know, I don't know, maybe they don't land quite as maybe they're Armstrong was hoping that they would. Like, there's a part with a half-eaten dog.
Yeah.
That's like, it's whimpering, and it's like, and Dylan has to kill it.
Yeah.
And it's like, God damn, that was pretty horrifying, you know? Like, I mean, it's the special effects are like, they're laughable, but it's still like kind of disturbing, you know? Like, it's just this like little puppet dog thing. It's like, and she's got to like kill it with this shovel because of the Sheborgs have half eaten this thing and just thrown half of its body to the side, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I did enjoy that when I like the cheesy gore effects, and I kind of it's like, it's not really on par as far as being a I don't think it's going to be like a long term like cult classic as much as like Peter Jackson's Bad Taste or Brain Dead or Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, but like it's in that same realm.
Yeah,
you know, like it's noticeably cheaper looking than those, but yeah, it's there is some like imaginative use of like CGI and gore effects throughout the movie. Like there's a part in where Dylan's friend Eddie throws a glass jar full of some chemical that's supposed to kill these zombie Sheborg things at one of the Sheborg's face, and the way it was done in the movie, I thought that they legit, as well, this comes after you've got your lead actress hanging off the back of a van. I thought that they just had the glass bottle and just threw it at this actor's face and smashed it on his face. But in the end credits, where they've got the bloopers and the B-roll footage, you see how that effect was done, like kind of like a superimposing thing. Like they had just the actor throwing it at like a block of wood, and then they put the actor in front of it later. And it's a simple effect, but that kind of stuff I really liked. Like, it was kind of just really simple things like that actually they look really good in this movie. Like some of the other effects in the movie look really cheesy. So every now and then there's something in the movie that actually really does look very good, and you think, well, they must have actually done that, you know?
Yeah. I thought the original Sheborg, who's played by Emma Louise Wilson, I thought she looked really good. Like the outfit and everything that she is in. I really thought that there was a lot of work in her outfit. It's a pity in a way that the storyline kind of makes it that she can't move too far, because I would actually have liked to have seen her character almost have been like Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator, where she gets to like move around the city a bit more and get involved in more of the destruction. Like, I actually thought that her outfit looked absolutely sensational, and I probably would have liked to have seen her kind of doing more of the destruction side of things rather than the blonde Sheborg that we see facing off against Dylan a couple of times. And I really think that Emma Louise Wilson's performance here, it was very much kind of like the performances in Farscape, like it especially reminded me a lot of the character of Chiana, with the way that she kind of like had those moves, like, and Gigi Edgley had those moves with Chiana because she was circus trained, and I kind of got that feeling from Emma Louise Wilson as well, like with the way that she would crane her neck out of the wreck of the car and she would move her hands. It had this really unique effect that kind of made her Sheborg a lot more interesting than some of the others, and I think I actually would have liked to have seen more of her character, but more of her character kind of like moving around, like almost her going to town hall and facing off with the girls rather than the other Sheborg that did.
Yeah, because that's actually one of the first things that I wrote down, like, after watching the movie. It's like, yeah, that there's not really enough of the actual title monster.
Yeah.
You know, in the movie, as you say, like, because her outfit looked so good, I mean, it might have been maybe that was a little bit too much for them to keep doing that outfit, for them to do that costume, like, on a shoestring budget. They didn't have the time to put that costume, those special effect makeup. So it's basically, most of her stuff is filmed in the same location. It might have been that, but yeah, definitely that definitely was a pity. Like, it would have been, I don't know. I'm right there with you. I kind of felt the same way, that I would have liked to have seen a lot more of that monster like fighting. I did like again. I know I keep going back to it, but I really did like the shameless gore of the movie. Like, I think that Armstrong, he really does like, Daniel Armstrong really does seem to like covering his actresses in gore. Like, at least as far as this movie is concerned, it's like, yeah, it's great. Like, that's when the movie's at its best. It's just shameless blood and guts, and Dylan and Eddie are like cutting their way through zombie aliens and just being covered in green scrambled eggs, whatever the hell it is. Like, that stuff was really, really fun. I thought that was really what it was looking for here.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I just see this as another one of those movies that really fits into how ingenious some young Australian film directors can be, like, to make movies, because like, I watch a lot of B and C grade kind of action, horror and stuff that comes out in the United States, and when I talk to the directors, one thing kind of always kind of bounces back to me is I realize that even though this movie is B and C grade, there's a little bit of money there. Like, I spoke to a director recently, and I won't name him for slanderous reasons, but when I was talking to him, I realized that he came from a family that had money. So when he made his first feature, there was money there that was available for him to make that film. And yeah, the film looks really good for a first-time feature, but that's because of the money that was there behind the film. Like, he was able to travel outside of his hometown and stuff to make the film look a lot better, whereas Daniel Armstrong is a director who is coming from a background of, like many of us, shooting movies in his backyard. Like I can remember when I was growing up and my best friend wanted to be a filmmaker, and then my friends at uni, we were the same. We would borrow cameras from uni and go out and shoot films guerrilla style on weekends, but we had no money. Like, basically the only thing we paid for was the tapes that went into the camera. So it involved like a lot of guerrilla shooting, like I was going to say breaking into, but let's just say jumping fences to go into graveyards and stuff like that to film at night. And that's kind of the Aussie way of doing it. And Daniel Armstrong has just taken that to the next level. Like, our movies used to be like 18 minutes, 19 minutes long. Daniel Armstrong's managed to make a 90-minute movie kind of in that same realm, where he would have begged, borrowed, and stole like the stuff that he used to make in this movie, because that's how you do it. And I think it's a great stepping stone, and we're seeing now more Australian directors kind of like making that jump from the Australian film industry to working overseas. And one of the reasons why overseas producers like to work with them is that these Australian directors know how to use a budget a lot better than what some people do overseas, because they're used to making a film on nothing. So yeah, look, Daniel Armstrong is one of those directors that I think one day is going to make an absolutely huge blockbuster movie in America, and it's going to be thanks to movies like Sheborg Massacre, where he's been able to cut his craft and learn how to be a good director.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some parts in this movie, like for how cheap, no doubt, it was. There's definitely a few parts in this movie that really that are pretty decent, like for such a cheap movie. Like this car smashes, that the part where the car crashes into the tree, and it was like, that was okay. You've wrecked an actual car. That was pretty decent.
Yeah.
Some of the locations that they filmed, even though it seems like that they go back and forward from the City Hall location to the puppy farm location, like that seems to really be just the two areas that the movie films in. Still, like the City Hall location, it does look like it does look like the filmed in a government building.
Yeah, well, the exterior of that was definitely, it was either Collingwood or Richmond Town Hall. So I don't know whether that was filmed inside there, but definitely the exterior was.
Yeah, it definitely looked like it. I mean, there's sometimes you can see some of the backgrounds of areas seem like really bare, and it's like they look like they've been filmed. If they have been filming there, they've probably been filming up on like the third floor or something where like nobody really goes. But it was a good, like, the locations for that, it did look great. It wasn't like they just filmed in somebody's house and then pretended that it was a government building. It actually did look like one.
Yeah.
The costumes and special effects and stuff for such a cheap movie, it was pretty decent. And even when it's not, it's still in an endearing way. Like the puppy farm that most of the movie is set at, when at the beginning you see all the dogs locked up, and they're clear. It's like all like full grown different breeds of dogs, and it's clearly it's like the crew's their own pets, like their dogs. It was just like it wasn't like a bunch of puppies or something. It was like just everybody just brought their dogs along to film, and that was like, they're all happy dogs. Like they're supposed to be all locked up and like about to be tortured or experimented on. They all look just these happy dogs with their tails wagging. Like that stuff, I thought like that was cute. You know, that was still funny. But yeah, it was. Even for a cheap movie, there was still some parts in it that I thought Dan Armstrong he's done a great job in really making the most of what he had to work with.
Yeah, talking to those dogs, one of the highlights for me was in the blooper reel, Daisy Masterson trying to run and tripping over one of the dogs. I thought that was one of the highlights of the entire thing. But you said about stuff looking good. I thought the cop car looked really good. Like the cop car kind of had a Mad Max feel to it. Like like you can't just go out and replicate a Victorian police car. It's illegal to do it. So you've kind of got to make them look a little bit different. Like I know shows like Blue Heelers did replicate real police cars, but those cars were under police guard. Like when those cars were going to and from the set, they were under police guard because they were so realistic. Whereas when you're making a movie like this, you've got to do the Mad Max thing and kind of make the cop car look like it's real, but look so that it's not real, so that you're not going to get in trouble for replicating a police car. So I thought stuff like that looked really good. And like you said, like the car crash and things like that, like that looked absolutely sensational. So I guess that leads to, what are we going to give this movie out of 5?
I'm going to give this 3 out of 5. I definitely enjoyed it, but I mean, I don't see it as being a cult classic. But I definitely had fun watching it at least this one time, and I am interested to see like I say, I am interested to see other movies from this director.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm going to give it 3 stars as well. I think that this was a great stepping stone for Daniel Armstrong, and like I enjoyed watching this one, but I loved watching Tarnation a lot more. But yeah, if you ever get a chance and you want to like, especially now while you're in lockdown, this is a great time. Try and hunt down Daniel Armstrong's movies, because Murderdrome is a great film, Fight Like a Girl is a great film, Tarnation is a great film, and they're all films that, probably aside from Tarnation, but Sheborg, Fight Like a Girl, and Murderdrome, they all feel like the kind of movies that you should be watching on VHS, like, just the way that they are. So, yeah, while you're in lockdown and you want to have a look at these movies, check out Daniel Armstrong's films. Of course, check out Sheborg on Friday night. You can go to Monster Pictures' YouTube page, go to their website, and you'll be able to watch Sheborg Massacre being screened for free. Beforehand, they're actually screening Ghost Turd, which is the short film. Yes, and it is what it sounds. It is a turd that is a ghost. It's a short film that actually won their best short film festival last year at Monster Fest. So check out that film as well. But yeah, just remember, during lockdown, there are all these unique opportunities. So check out Monster Pictures' Friday Night Frights this Friday night. Sheborg Massacre got 3 stars from me, 3 stars from Kyle. That's it for this episode. I've been Dave G.
And I've been Kyle.
And we'll be back very, very soon with another episode, another special lockdown episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy.